Good morning. So, we have climate preparedness, not an easy topic to discuss. While Dr. Bhasin has already set the stage on fire, he talked about how difficult it is getting, what is happening in our courts, and we have a panel where we have lawyers and GCs both. I will only say that last 3 months have been very tough for climate preparedness in this country. We have taken a about turn on environmental responsibility, whether it's the air pollution, whether it's the environmental clearance, whether it's post-environmental clearance, there is a sudden U-turn by the entire ecosystem of this country. And I have realized 2, 3 things learning from my younger brother, Dr. Batra, that after a particular age, just to talk nice things is not a great idea. You have to say what is true for this country. So the air pollution, for now, we have no answer. For accountability on the carbon emissions, we have no answer. For our international conferences which happen in COP and other places, it was virtually semi-disaster this year. In this background, the silver lining is how the Indian corporates have done their bit because the country believes today, apna apna dekh lo bhai. Even it came from the Supreme Court also that even I have a problem. Even I am coughing, I can't walk in the morning. That's the kind of situation you are in. So I have a very powerful panel. I'll only tell you that climate responsibility, climate accountability is not any particular country's privilege, glamour, appeal. You are in a very crisis situation. I was with a scientist, with a lawyer from Baker McKenzie, 2 major general counsels from Europe's one of the top buying houses. And it was said on my face that it's not about India, about China or Russia. Even if you remove each and every person from this planet today, each and every human being from this planet today, your 2 degrees centigrade accountability will not be complete. You will not be able to adhere to 2 degrees centigrade. You have lost that momentum. Your coal consumption is not going down. Your vehicle consumption is not going down. Last point I'll say, I know I have a panel, but I was thinking I will set the agenda to them. You want a clean air in Delhi. Tell me which capital city in the world is in constant construction mode. The entire South Delhi where we stay, I don't know about East West, just see all your houses, हर तीसरे दिन एक मकान बिकता है, उसको तोड़ के 6 फ्लोर बना दिए जाते हैं. धूल नहीं आएगी तो धूल कोर्ट कहां से साफ कर देगी? Same applies to your river. You will put the railing on the Yamuna river, but you will stop your car and climb the railing and put the plastic in the river. What kind of climate preparedness you will do under these circumstances? So let's not only think about the corporates, the government, or it's the civil society which has to take it up. And now the time has come. If you really want to live that kind of life, which is where only personality rights are not protected by courts, but the fundamental right to clean air is also protected by the courts. So on this note, I will come first to Bharathi. Bharathi, you have seen from very close what is happening. Tell us how Indian corporate is doing it bit when a lot of responsibility from the courts and from the government is giving directly to the companies now. Apna apna dekh lo.
First and foremost, good morning, everyone, and thank you, BW Business World Media Group, Anurag Batra and his team, Dr. Lalit Bhasin, and thank you, Sudhir Mishra. And thank you, everybody, to be here on a Sunday morning. I completely understand how precious weekends are. It is indeed a pleasure to be here today to speak on a subject that is rapidly becoming the central of almost every sector. I can say that at least from my sector. So as India is transitional, what we see is ESG has evolved from what was a voluntary corporate initiative into a core business mandate. And as India is transitioning, accelerating towards energy transition and climate commitments, ethanol and distillery sector stands at a very defining moment. Now, this is the sector that I come from, and I can talk about it. And this sector is recognized as a critical enabler of ethanol blending program, where 20% of the oil fuel of the nation comes from this currently, and going forward, we're looking at 80 to 100%. This is also a strategic pillar. The sector is also a strategic pillar of India's low carbon growth, and a key contributor to lively economy and farmers' livelihood and farmers' income, and also a key significant contributor to renewable energy development that we're talking about, how its contribution to the air, water, etc. Now, this is what the reason I'm sharing this is giving you a context to show, to highlight how ESG has transformed from a mandatory, from a voluntary initiative to a basically a mandate now, requirement, a business requirement. And regulators, investors, lenders, etc., policymakers, global supply chains are increasingly looking at industries with strong ESG profiles and a great credibility on sustainability frameworks. This is, maybe I can take it forward.
They are good initial thoughts. Praveen, I'll come to you because we have been talking about it. There are new terminologies coming up now, and I want you to delve into it. The greenwashing, we were knowing that companies have been dealing with that, or they have been accused of. Now, blue washing has become the bigger phenomena because I think all the supply chains, especially in Europe, they expect that the carbon emissions is fine. You will take care of, curate it at your end if they are seeking anything from India or the subcontinent. But they're also now talking about the S part of it, the ESG's S part. How will you be prepared where you're not making claims with regard to them? So blue washing and what are the risks associated on the human aspect? You would like to touch upon that?
Sure. Thank you so much. It's again an honor and privilege for me to be here. Thank you, everyone. So, Sudhir, you asked a very relevant question because a lot has already been talked about climate. In COP also, in G20 also, the NDCs that governments have been putting up in terms of their own commitments. And as you said, that to everyone on its own. So we already have set targets. There are deadlines. There are targets that have given by the organization, by the governments to the organizations also. Now, what has happened? And over the last 6 months, I've been traveling to UAE, European countries, Egypt, and some other geographies as well. And everywhere, the S part and the G part is also very much high in focus, where these two aspects are not been considered soft pillars, but are so critical that they can wipe out the entire organizational value very quickly. Now, coming to the point, such as the blue, aspect, you talked about the blue washing aspect. So in Europe, there is a law, that is a regulation that has come up, that is CSDDD, which talks about due diligence, making it mandatory for organizations, including their entire value chain, to conduct a human rights due diligence and environmental due diligence. Now, Indian labor law reforms that has recently been took shape, they're also covering some of it, bit of it. But one important aspect is that the liability is on the employer. Within this CSDDD, the liability also encompasses the civil liability, where anywhere, anyone can put up a litigation if the harm is there in your value chain. So social aspect is very prominent. The risk is very high, apart from climate risk. When we look at physical risks, we talk about climate risks. But when we look at transitional risks, we're talking about laws not only pertaining to climate, but also laws pertaining to governance and social issues. So,
but yeah, very good initial points. Mr. Kalra, I'll come to you, and I will like to know from your experience what our work is happening on ESG in India, which you like to highlight, and which you think puts us ahead. Because I also feel that I started with a little pessimistic note, I agree. But I know, I also said that the corporates have a story. When the 1,000 companies were told to file their ESG mandatory compliance, they went beyond that. Even the financing part of it also, now the banks are looking at the financing very carefully, that whether it's properly green curated. And more than curated, they are putting real meat behind it. So what are your ESG preparedness? What are your plans? How your company and how these things are being done at your end?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I think broadly, one thing what we all have come to accept is that everybody is getting affected, as you rightly mentioned, and we have to do something about it. And we have seen very recently how things are going to become more onerous for everybody. And if we don't come together, then I don't think we're going to make it. Probably 30, 40 years down the line, I may not be here. A lot of the young people will be here. But I think the broader line...
50 plus. Brent Johnson is telling us how to live longer.
Yes.
Dr. Batra is doing few therapies in that regard.
Yes. I think broadly, if I, let's say, take the construction equipment industry as an example, since I'm working here before I was in the car industry. Very recently, the industry went through the BS4 to BS5 norm. Just the beginning of this year, 6 months grace period, and then everybody has shifted. It's a gradual start, but if you look at it, it only applies to any equipment or machine that can ply on the road, which is the Motor Vehicles Act, not on anything else. So if you're working and taking something at the farm, it doesn't apply. Or if you're working in the mines, it does not apply. There will have to be a gradual change there as well, and I believe there has been a miss there. And there are strategic reasons of it, of course, because you cannot expect a farmer to invest so much more money and into a new vehicle, which is, let's say, a BS4 or BS5 compliant. The cost goes up by almost 1.5 to 2.5 lakhs for a single tractor, and the farmers are not able to do it. Somewhere the corporates will have to again step in there as well on the corporate and the agricultural side of things, wherein, let's say, we take the pain and we say, okay, there will be a transition on the costs, the supply chain may bear it, and the corporates may bear it, and you can get it done. And that's also, again, a new approach probably that the financing institutions also, I would suggest, can adopt, wherein you're not overburdening the end user for those compliances. I think that is one. The other part is, as in how the board requirements become onerous. We were talking about greenwashing and blue washing, everything will happen. But as in-house counsels, general counsel, we'll have to guide not just the board, but the ESG teams as well. And I think we were just discussing that most of the ESG teams do not have lawyers. For whatever reason, it's more operational. We're not the road blockers. Again, my request to everybody, and we'll have to put our skin in the game as well, is that we'll help you build a better structure, better framework for the organization, so that you are confident enough to report, and then you can take away these issues that will keep cropping. I think the bottom line, very, very quickly, from my perspective, will be that we'll have to partner ourselves with the business. Otherwise, we'll not be able to make it.
Very well said, actually, because this is what is being debated throughout the world. And I was in Berlin 3 weeks back in a ESG conference where it was a very strange kind of conference where the big four law firms, Baker McKenzie, Herbert Smith, Clifford Charles, they were there, and the big companies were there. And I had the privilege to be the only Asian lawyer there. And I realized what they are debating and what they are talking is exactly what you just said. I'm so happy you are already discussing this, that ESG is typically, it came from the safety and environment department. It had no connect with the legal department. The GC had no play in that. And then they realized, no, the labor laws are being talked about, the environmental laws are being talked about, the compliances and the corporate law principles also come in. Then they partially started involving the legal, the GCs. And then the GCs started looking for the correct law firm which will advise you on an immediate basis. So that's the crisis. So I can assure you, this is the crisis Europe is also battling with, where the turf domain and the turf war, that whether it's a environment safety department thing or it's a legal department, because nobody wants, legal department is normally treated with due respect as a non-profit center in every company. So the company is always very keen that we should not increase it value or something to be on a point. So Mr. I think you have already thought about it. Take us deeper into it. What is going to happen? Because there is another point which is coming, that ESG should not be just looked as, you will not succeed on ESG unless you live the life of environmentalism. And how a company actually goes into that skin will be the game changer. So what are your thoughts?
So, good morning, everyone. And it's a pleasure to come here on a Sunday morning. I flew in from Pune, so my carbon footprint is not great. But let me clarify, I work from home, so yes, I offset it in that manner. I guess I'm the only lawyer amongst the community we see who's actually a designated risk and sustainability officer. And I was designated even before the law came in by my board. And so I should appreciate my company, the independent directors. And the risk committee is filled with only independent directors. So I should say, Dr. Bhasin, Dr. Batra, that people your age are actually forward-looking and they are proactive, because that is the board. I have independent directors who are founders of HDFC Bank, who are ex-MD of Tata Chemicals. So they are all veterans, as they are called rock stars in their field. So in that context, let me say that I also came into conferences 3 years ago when all the lawyers said, this is not our job. And I think I was the only one who was already doing it and was designated. I have been a risk officer for more than 5 years. I have also been a sustainability officer for more than 3 years now. And I handle it globally. So if India, so let me start, the bottom line I think we should follow is be the change. This is what is coming out from all of us here. If you want something done, you have to drive it. And that is precisely what is what I will say. And I'll just stick to climate preparedness because I could hear from everyone that they are focusing on the industry. I have tried to go beyond my industry, which is pharma, which will always be chemical driven, which will always have emissions. We all agree that regulations and laws were always there. Environmental laws were there from God knows when. We do file with Pollution Control Board. So I come from an organization which is 90% manufacturing is in India, 100% export oriented. So we are part of the growth story, correct, for Bharat, Mera Bharat Mahan. And if we have to compete globally, we will have to remain competent on the global standards. So it cannot be Indian government standards at all. And this is what I need all of you to understand is, it is actually legal's job to do all of this because we are monitoring the compliances, correct? So when my organization has a UK law where it is mandatory to have net zero targets, and we had to take it last year, I have already worked with my team to, and I have non-legal team members. I have civil engineers. So it is core ESG team where I have MBAs and engineers, environmental engineers. So it's not pure legal. I have business team members. So it's a small team, 4 or 5 members, but it is a mix of legal. So we all bounce off our knowledge against each other as a collaborative effort, which goes out into the 40-50 people globally who are contributing. So we got our rating. We are amongst the top 10% in our DJSI rating. So I can tell you it's all hands-on. I literally read my kids' 5th, 6th standards environmental study books. That is where all the knowledge on SDGs is. This is what we all have to do because I will not be here, but all of you will be here another 20, 30 years down the line. We have taken away the resources in our luxuries. Let me be very straight. But the youngsters will struggle. Your lives are going to be difficult. You have to take interest. You can't just say, I'm a lawyer, therefore I'll not know. You have to know the business of your company. You have to know the operations. You have to see what they're doing.
Perfect.
So this is all, I mean, I can go on and say that in my M&A checklist, I have climate risk assessments listed out. My team has done the climate risk assessment for all the manufacturing and all the global locations. So there are a lot of things which one has to do, biodiversity assessment, have the mitigation plans for those locations. Not only in India, for the global, in each continent we have plants, including US. So we are doing all of this. Scope 3, where all the supply chain vendors, and thankfully pharma is very regulated, so we will be collecting the data. So we have done all of that, which is why our ratings are in the 80s, and out of 100. And we know that where we have to go next. But the fact is that the strategy we are putting today has to sustain for next 30 to 50 years. And that's the bottom line when we have already gone for assurances, third-party assurance, which will be mandatory in some time in India as well. And also SBTi, science-based target initiatives. So everything is legal. I completely agree with my team members here. I will call them team members, colleagues, going by Dr. Bhaseen's words. There are no leaders. Because we learn from each other. So I was pushed to do this by my young colleagues. That's the fact. The colleagues who are in 30s, they wanted to do ESG and they said, we want to do it. I just had to lead the team. That's the bottom line, because that's what youngsters want. They are coming into employment only on the understanding that people are contributing to their safety and their future. So that's how it is today.
Thank you, Sormishtha. Very well. You dissected it completely. And that's why you connected with the entire thing and you made all of us understand that every small incremental effort matters. Before I'll go to Shishir, I'll tell you on this note that as the amicus of the carbon emissions matter in the Supreme Court, in last 1 year, we had a small opportunity to make a change. And you will like to know that change, that whenever we used to go to hotels, and Dr. Bhaseen and all of us have been discussing, we used to see minimum temperature as 17 degrees, 16 degree. And you are seeing that entire world is now moving to 25 degree, 27 degrees in Europe. Here a rickshaw wala is putting his rickshaw and auto rickshaw at 44 and 48 degrees. So I raised it before the Supreme Court, kept on fighting, and in June 2025, a notification has come from the Government of India that the default temperature setting for air conditioners will be 24 degrees. That's what I'm saying. Every small thing is now critical. Taking the clue from you, what she is saying, and I totally second it, that climate, we should not even think about a large game. Like there is this village in Haryana where a girl child, and that has now become a movement in Haryana. A girl child is born, immediately everybody goes in the evening, no cash or anything is given, a plant is given, and 750 rupees in her account as a minor account with the guardian is deposited. And the idea is that the plant has to be taken care. So these dualities are happening.
Sir, I would like to end on one more aspect, which again, it is my team's work. Monthly, I hold ESG talks where I have to speak. I literally learn and then speak on every topic. Life cycle assessment of products, right? 70% of your revenue needs to be done, and it is all contractual, by the way. If lawyers are thinking we don't have to understand, trust me, these are contractual obligations coming from the customers, okay? And my team actually sits down in these negotiations. Responsible supply chain. Let me responsible sourcing. For all these negotiations, my team is being called in nowadays because they have realized we know. Okay, my team knows. And last bit, when I do this ESG talk, the last count 2 weeks ago of my audience globally was 800 people.
Brilliant.
Globally.
Brilliant.
I never thought that I'll have that type of audience within my organization. So forget about outside. This is why I said just be the change, because we give them a list of things they can do individually, and it becomes personal, right? They do that in their homes. So I'm sure I always talk to the young generation, not to the old people, frankly, because we were taught by our older generation how to recycle products and how to do things, you know. Ghar ka pocha bana lo, purana t-shirt. That's how it works, correct? So we learned something, but in the middle we lost our path, or wherever we went into the profitability game or whatever, industrialization. But please make the effort, because I completely agree, it's depressing that 2 degree and 1.5 degree is not going to happen if we don't fight it out now. And we don't have another planet to go to, that's also a fact.
So coming to our last speaker, Shishir, incidentally we both are classmates, and for the first time we are sitting together on a dais. And I just want to digress here because it's an important moment. 1989 we met, and we stayed in a room together, joined graduation together. And for me, it's a very special moment. He's a general counsel, I'm practicing. But it's such a beautiful thing. You talked about life, who all will live and not live. It's a personal thing for me that we both are here after 35 years, and he lives in Mumbai, I live in Delhi, and I feel good. Shishir, what is your ESG story? Sormishtha has set the bar very high for GCs now, and I think BW conference will be remembered for this. And thank you, BW, for letting me know that it's not only lawyers who go to court, they are passionate. There are general counsels who are more passionate than us, and it's a good learning for me personally. Yeah, Shishir.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Sudhir. Thank you, BW Legal, and it's an honor to be here. I'll dwell upon, so I come from the infrastructure and I wear two hats, I think many of us. So I'm a GC and also a Chief Compliance Officer, which is a nodal position from RBI. So there are a lot of things I have to look into. And before giving the infrastructure perspective, I'm a positive man, and I'll give you some positive data also that yes, we are working on it. So definitely it's a long path to go ahead, but at the same time, the survey may be dated or whatever it is, but I can tell you that large companies have already, 50% of them have already embedded in their processes. That is one fact of it. 75% have already a sustainability goals. Yes, the data for the small and medium enterprise, it's some 29% and all, so way to go. But there are a lot of work have already been done and all. I'll definitely take few minutes on the infra part because, and before getting into it, would like to mention, and from the financial sector, looking at the regulator's position, and I would like to clear certain perceptions about the legal being part of, not part of, that we are all working in India toward Viksit Bharat 2047. No industry is going to get, and this is, I'm giving you, there are certain at the draft guideline stage, there are certain which has come up. You are not going to get capital unless you meet those ESG metrics. Please take it from me, and I can tell with conviction that you will not have, you need finance for any sort of a projects, whether any industry, and we maintain IFC standards and all, but the guidelines have come. There is a guideline from RBI which is still in a draft stage which mentions that unless you have climate risk in your processes and the risk management, that is one part of it. You have a task force for the climate disclosure, that is second. And government is working so much on green financing and the green bonds. And two initiatives I can mention which some of you may not have found out, but I can tell you, or some may be aware of, is then one, we all know that we are moving towards, and I don't want to get into the data, how much we reduce the emissions and all. But from Aseem, I can tell you, like, we have funded 5.6 gigawatt of renewable energy and abated the emission of some 7.6 million tons of emission. That is on the dashboard we present to the board. Okay, I'll mention about the board perspective, how the independent directors are these days, because they are also answerable to the regulators. So the independent director is not just sitting in the board, they come for the meetings and all. We are taking them out in Aseem Infra, and likewise I feel all the institutions must be doing to see on the corporate social responsibility is not that you have given a check for whatever 2% that is required, but also to see whether impact assessment is there or not, and you have to present it. So it's not the tick of the box, that is one part of it. There are two aspects which I would like to mention. That one is the sovereign bond has come from the government of India, which is one of its kind for the renewable energy. Second, we are the only institution in the country which is funding, and you need infra if you have to grow. So only institution, and I know a little bit of perspective because we are the only one in private sector funding for both operational and the construction phase. So you need capital during the delays. There can be a number of reasons for it. You may have a ROW issue and various other things which can come up. You may have climate situation, so you cannot progress. Now, the Ministry of Finance and the World Bank has come up with a partial guarantee scheme for those developers who meet these ESG requirements. Then they will give this guarantee, which is sort of a sovereign guarantee, so that you can complete it. So these are the initiatives from the government in collaboration with the World Bank and all, so that we move all forward. So there are enough positive impact have already been done.
You conclude.
Yeah, so give me a minute or two. So this is what, with respect to you need finance. When you need finance, you need to meet those. Now we all know about this BRSR, that core which has, and then finally again basis the FICCI, CIA and all, they have made it. So you have all 9 principles and all. Now it is given from the voluntary narrative, it has become audited. So you have to get into the intensity based and all, it has to be audited, third party validations and all. So 2 points I would like to make. One is, and more from the infra side because I know, but at the same time, one is with respect to SEBI, which is, yes, it has come up for the 1,000 listed, it is percolating further. I can tell you with that. Second is RBI has come up with a draft guidelines, which is going to come soon. We all know about greenwashing, that guideline which has come. You have CSR. Then Ministry of Finance have come with a lot of initiative on the green financing and various other things, which are all towards that support. But last point, one, it will take time to come to a smaller companies because they have certain challenges. But if you do not meet those requirements, maybe initially out of 10, if you don't meet 2, 3, 4 or 5, you're not going to get money. So it will be difficult for you to move further.
Okay.
But 10 seconds, as the enough to say, but I have restrictions on Sudhir. Only thing is that it's a positive move is already there, long way to go, but at the same time, wearing the hat of a compliance, we also have to ensure, and because regulators are after us, I think time will come where we'll be saying more positive things.
Yes, and on this note, I'll just, before concluding, I'll say 2, 3 very important things. That look, as a country, I started with a little pessimistic note, so I have to end with like a typical good Hindi movie where everything becomes better at the end. So there are achievements actually, and the courts have played a big role in this entire process. We are the legal ecosystem sitting here, and Dr. Bhasin is seen it all, and what he said, that what used to happen earlier and what is happening now. I'll just like to tell you what he meant by saying what used to happen earlier. So you had a 9% of forest cover at the time of independence. Today you have 17.8% of forest cover. It's because there is a matter called Godavari versus Union of India. It's still going on in the Supreme Court. Tomorrow it is going to be heard, because whether it's an air pollution matter, whether it's a biodiversity, whether it's tiger conservation, whether it's community reserve, tribal rights, protected area management. Can you imagine a country of 140 crore people has protected its tiger as a species with the intervention of the court? And I have been part of this journey for 27 years. Earlier worked with the NGOs, worked on more than 100 PILs, traveled more than 200 national park wildlife sanctuaries. And what is refreshing for me when I get a panel like this, when people talk that they understand it deep inside, then you get corrected and you get emboldened. This is the country which has protected the tiger for the world. You breathe, you have still chances to survive, because voluntarily in Delhi, 40% of people have shifted to electric bikes. If you have clerks, you know, earlier you used to get bills for going to Patiala House, the Sejari, Kakaduma, and you have to reimburse the petrol bills. Now you charge your two-wheeler and they are fine, sorted. You don't have to deal with all of that. And that's why you are able to breathe little better, because two-wheelers, which were exempted in odd even, because they are important political voting class, nobody will ask them to come on one day and not to come on another day. They were exempted. They are the people who voluntarily shifted, no government thing. Of course, the free electricity was a major impetus. So we have saved a lot. We have done the renewable in a record time on net zero objective. But the road is tough on air pollution and the rivers and our drinking issues. So we have tough challenges. I have always tried to maintain timelines. And I just want to say this was a fabulous panel. Dr. Bhasin is here. Before he says, I want to take his permission to take few of them in the CII subcommittee for ESG. And then you say whatever you have to say. Yes.
You made a reference to the role of the Supreme Court. But in a very recent judgment, 2:1, earlier judgment of Justice Oak was set aside, reversed and all that. So is it a good trend?
So that is what I'm saying. I started that the industry has been told, apna apna dekh lo. And that trend is absolutely shocking. I will tell you, my first reaction was, is there any opportunity left to do environmental lawyering? Because it took almost 2 decades to strengthen the environmental clearance process. And the core of that entire process was that the soul of the entire process was that judiciary will not give post clearance. If you have missed the bus, you have missed the bus. The Vedanta case, all the other cases went through that process. Now you are doing a fundamental shift. You had a 1994 notification for EIA, which came after the Bhopal gas leak. You had a 2006 notification which came up where states were given power to appraise the projects and clear. And many Supreme Court decisions said that it's sacrosanct. You need to have a prior environmental clearance. Now in a review petition, you do it. And I have a feeling that if universities can have a 13-judge Keshav and Bharathi thing, the 13-judge bench should sit and revoke this order at the earliest. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I'm deeply grateful for this panel. Deeply grateful to Dr. Batra for this opportunity. Thank you.